So, hi everyone. Glad to have you today. I am Kathy Evans, and I'm a professor at Eastern Mennonite University in the Education Department, and we're starting a new webinar series on restorative justice in education. One of the principles of restorative justice in education, or of restorative justice in general, is the inclusion and active involvement of all the stakeholders. And one of the least recognized groups, I think, is the voices of students. I think sometimes we end up making decisions at the school and policy level without the participant of students and without their perspectives. And so as we kick off this 5-part webinar series, the first thing we wanted to do was to make sure we heard from students who are actively involved in restorative justice. Anita Wadhwa is our guest today, along with 4 of her students who are working there at the Restorative Justice Collaborative in Houston and at the Academy of Choice. And so I'm going to turn things over to Anita for a few minutes and let her introduce her program, introduce the students, and then we'll engage in a conversation about the work that's going on there in Houston. So, Anita?
Hi, Kathy. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. We're very humbled and excited to be able to speak with you today. We are at a small academic alternative high school in Houston called the Academy of Choice. It is a school that attracts students from all over our district. Our district is sort of split socioeconomically. North of the freeway here, I-10, we have schools that are predominantly made up of students of color and predominantly students from more lower SES backgrounds. And south, it's the opposite. So we have a very interesting blend, and our superintendent has worked really hard to make sure that we're serving all students. And so our school attracts a good representation from the district of students who just want a different kind of education, and the students can speak to this better than I can from their perspective. We have very small classes. We do hybrid learning with the internet. We try to offer alternative opportunities such as restorative justice that, quite frankly, are easier to implement at a small school like this than at a comprehensive high school of 2,000. And so I taught for 5 years in Houston Independent School District and became very frustrated with school discipline issues and seeing kids cycle in and out and seeing what wasn't working and getting sent to discipline schools, some of them disappearing, some ending up in jail. And so I decided to pursue my doctoral studies, and I learned about restorative justice while in Boston. I did a study where I looked at 2 schools, and I did ethnography, and I just visited the schools twice a week and got to see a program being built from the ground up. And I basically took all the lessons from Boston, came back to my hometown, found a principal who wanted to try this, and we've been able to pilot circles here, starting with 1 circle 2 years ago to now we've probably done almost 100 circles in 2 years. And we do a youth apprenticeship model, which means I teach a course. These students sit in circle every day for a check-in. We read books about the school to prison pipeline. They learn about the racial component of school disciplinary practices. And then we do circles. When someone has an incident, a teacher to a student or student to student, or we go to the discipline school nearby just to do community building circles. So different circles, we do talking circles, community building circles, and healing circles. They facilitate with me, get a few circles under their belt. When they and I both mutually feel like, okay, you're ready, we'll let them go do a circle on their own. Sometimes circles that are just youth-led are far more effective than when I'm in the room. So it has to be, I have to have a trust with them that they can handle that if someone says they're going to harm themselves or harm someone else, that they're going to report it to me. And so that's what we've been doing, and our motto is let's start a movement. And I don't know if you can see it, but we're all wearing our Let's Start a Movement shirts. And I'd like to just pass it on to Yancy and have each student introduce themselves, if that's okay, Kathy.
Great. Someone has said that not all 5 of you are visible, so one person sitting on the edge. There we go. Yes, that'd be great. Will y'all introduce yourselves? Yes.
Thank you. I'd like Yancy because she was in the class where our motto came from. It's "Let's start a movement." And it's a very inspiring story, and it explains our organization really well. So,
Do you want me to?
yeah, if you want to introduce yourself and explain, yeah.
Okay. Hi, I'm Yancy, and on our shirts we have "Let's Start a Movement." The way that we got this phrase was that during our leadership class that I took about a year and a half ago, we were the first class that Ms. Wadhwa taught leadership for. And in that class, we always talk about the school-to-prison pipeline, and we do all different activities. And at the end of the semester, as a final exam type of thing, we do a story of self, which is we talk about our story of how our life been and how it's been impacted with restorative justice. And in that classroom, it was very particular because we had 2 students who were from different gangs. And at the end of the semester, whenever we read the story of self to the class, the one gang member, he read his story of self to the classroom, and then whenever he finished reading his story of self, after that, the other gang member, he approached him and said, "Well, I didn't know that me and you have a bunch of similarities. We've been through the same things," because they're both gang members, so they experience a lot of same things. And I'm really impacted by your story. So if you know what, let's start a movement. We shouldn't be killing each other. Let's start something new. So that's how we got Let's Start a Movement.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. So when you talk about a movement, what kind of movement would you like to start?
Actually, it's a type of movement that we actually have started, of implementing circles in schools and preventing all this damage that people are doing to each other during schools, even outside of schools. And people are just like, when we have incidents that people are getting in fights, we are able to have a circle before it even happens and then actually talk things through, because a lot of the problems is bad communication between each person. Mm-hmm. So this is our main priority.
They've actually all presented at, we trained all administrators in our school district last week. So they've all presented to adults, and I'm going to let them speak. But just wanted to point out that this movement has started in Houston, where people are approaching and emailing us almost weekly that we'd like your students to come out and train us. And it's been a slow building process. So Yancy was in the first batch of leadership kids. Sky was in the second batch. Maybe you want to introduce yourself and maybe talk about some of the community stuff we're doing.
Okay, so I'm Skyland. Hi. We do a lot of community circles. We go out to our community, reach out to our community, and we do circles between police, teachers, administrators, people from all over Houston. We've been on local radio shows and national radio shows, actually. Baytown. At Baytown, this one circle we had a circle within a circle because these 2 ladies didn't believe that restorative. Well, not that they didn't believe, they just didn't know how it worked and they weren't really understanding. So 2 ladies ended up getting into an argument inside of the community circle, and we actually did a healing circle with them. And they came to understanding of each other's problems, and one lady was like she holds a grudge, and the other one was like she has a hard time keeping her words to herself because she has ADHD.
Well, these were adults.
They were adults.
A lot of adults come to us and say, will you do this at our job? We're finding out. And so we're really focused on young people in schools and on the juvenile justice system. And so, but it just kind of goes to show wherever we go, we have all these adults. There's a need for this in other places.
Great. Thank you, Sky.
Welcome.
So who else wants to speak for a moment?
Rania.
Rania, you want to talk about the DAP circle? Introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Rania. This is my first semester in leadership. We're doing restorative justice. I've been doing community circles and also circles at the disciplinary school near our school. We try to help and mentor the students there to see where they're coming from and try to help them improve their lives. And it's been really great to just be able to help them.
We'll talk about the elementary schools, what you do.
Okay. We also have elementary students at the disciplinary school, and we've been trying to have circles with them, try to get them to say why they're in there, and try to help them. I've been doing circles there every Friday now, and it's really great. Some of them, they don't even like each other, and now they're all friends, and they have a great time.
Nice. Nice.
Thank
you. Chris?
What's up to everybody? My name is Christopher Mendez. Like she was saying, we do circles over at the disciplinary school. I do that with her every Monday and Friday. And from what I've seen, it's actually really helping them improve it. They start focusing more on their classwork. They're not really worried about fighting with everybody else in the class. And really their only problem is there's things that go on outside of school. They either have rivalry with each other or they just grow up in different parts of the area. And so there's already they feel like they have to be against each other and they do it just to be accepted in their area. Usually that's what we see. It's not really, I don't know how to speak about it. Yeah.
What kind of behaviors do they show in circle, and how do you?
All right. When we started doing circles over there, it was really just a lot of disrespect. The students didn't believe in circle. They thought it wouldn't really help. To them, it was really just something stupid that they had to go through, that the school, forced them to attend to. But after a while, they started adjusting more. I mean, of course, you're not gonna just like that,
Can you say that again? A little bit louder?
At first, they weren't really accepting the circle. They felt it was just stupid. Like, they didn't want to do it. There was no point. It wasn't gonna help anything.
Mm-hmm.
What we did was, I wasn't ready for this. Okay.
You can talk about that. You told me to go. They kicked me out of the room. They told me I needed to go. So you can explain why.
Well, like I said, they didn't really want to be a part of circle just because it's not their thing. They weren't comfortable with it. So what I would do is any circle that I would be a part of, I got rid of any administrator, any teacher, just anybody older in the room, someone that they felt like they couldn't be open with, someone that they couldn't talk about things around. And with me, they just felt more comfortable because I grew up in the same places they grew up, and I know some of their relatives, older brothers, uncles, and things like that. So they felt more comfortable opening up to me, and they told me, they would tell me what goes on in the classroom, why they hated this other person, why they would fight, things like that. And well, I had to take initiative, and what I did is I had smaller circles within a large circle going on. I'm not good at it.
Yeah, you're doing great.
Pressure.
You're doing great. I have a question for you, Chris, specifically. When you talk about asking the adults and the administrators to leave the room because kids often won't open up about stuff that's going on, can you talk about that a little bit more? Is that true with all adults, or is it just some adults? Like, what really makes the difference there for you?
It's true with all adults. Usually it's a lot of illegal activities, so they really just want to hide it from every adult that they can. They don't want to end up, suffering consequences for things like that. And with me, they just open up.
So is it fear of getting in trouble?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're opening up about things that they're getting in trouble about.
I think that Chris is able to keep them accountable in a way that adults aren't, because they see that he's been in their shoes. He'd be okay with me saying, he literally went to that school. I taught at that school, and he improved so much and learned from whatever. So I feel like he can really be firm with them in a way that when it's an administrator, it's authoritative and authoritarian and everything at once. And no matter how hard we might try, it's real from him. Just like you said you would do this, you're not doing this. They're going to pay attention to him more than they do to us. So I think a particular crowd that might be true, not necessarily all students, but maybe you think also.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I appreciate that very much. And it's one of the things that I need to hear as someone who's trying to implement more restorative justice. How can I back out and get out of the way and let students actually be more responsible for leading these kinds of processes? So thanks for that.
Yeah, what you'll see is that really most students will open up when an administrative is like out of the circle. Majority of the time, it's very different.
Yeah.
We're leading it when there's an administrator in the circle.
Thanks. Hey, we have a question from a participant. You were talking about somebody being at a discipline school. Can you talk a little bit about the Academy of Choice, other schools? How is it set up, and what do you mean by discipline school?
Alternative education.
They don't know that AOC and DAP is different.
Okay, so this is a great question. So Academy of Choice, where we are, is an academic alternative school, not a discipline one.
Okay, that's important.
Students opt to come here and have to interview with the principal and just make certain agreements, and then they're allowed to come here. Whereas we're on the same large campus, and housed in our campus is the Discipline Alternative Education Program. In Texas, when you are expelled for weapon, disrespect, persistent misbehavior, drugs, whatever mandated or subjective reason, you have to have a placement. So that happens to be a 5-minute walk down our campus. And so we've been kind of going in and out of the DAP, the Discipline Alternative Education Program, once a week to try to build those relationships with kids and saying, like, we don't view you as, the bad kids, you bad choices. And then in the same building is an elementary program. So these are 4 and 5 year olds who've been expelled from their school for persistent misbehavior. And so they have all worked with both the elementary and the middle school kids.
Great. So one of the questions that we talked about asking, and I would just open this up to all 4 of you, how were you first introduced to restorative justice? Was it when Anita came, or did you hear about it before? How did you first hear about restorative justice? I see smiles on faces.
I'll talk first. The way that I was introduced to restorative justice, I didn't know about restorative justice at all. And then I was actually placed in the leadership class. I just happened to be placed to change my schedule. They're like, oh, you have leadership now. And I'm like, okay. I just went in and I'm like, oh, we're sitting in a circle. What are we in? Like, why? And that's how I was introduced. They just placed me in it, and then I actually grew up to love it now. But yeah, that's how I.
That's a little inaccurate, but that's fine. Basically, we decided we would choose a cohort of 10 kids to try this out with. Choose a range of kids. So I'm the in-school suspension teacher, right? So I get to know a lot of kids, especially kids who come back and back and back. And I built relationships with some of them, and I found several of them when I told them about RJ, because I'm an RJ, salesperson. They were like, wow, that's really cool. And I said, well, we're thinking of starting a class. And so I told Yancy, I'm thinking of you to join, but she doesn't remember that. But then they just put
have very bad memory.
Yeah, so it's very rare that you just put it in there, because we choose kids who run the gamut from I've always done well, I've never been suspended, to kids who have maybe records. Like, I don't even know their whole criminal history. It just, somehow we get kids who can really, really relate to the material, which I think speaks to how pervasive the school to prison pipeline is, you know? And kids who were maybe like me in high school in the corner, kind of getting away with being invisible, kids who are really outspoken. We get a range of students. But yeah, y'all can speak. When did you first hear about RJ?
Well, when I first heard, she had invited me to like join the class, and I was like, well, when I first got in there, I'm like, what is this? It's just another credit class, and I was like, it doesn't really make sense. I don't see how a circle helps. But as I did it, I really got to understand the concept of the change that Dr. Anita was trying to make, and it really impacted not only me, but my community and other people around me. So.
Thank you, Sky.
The first time I heard about leadership class, I was just told about the counselor. I didn't really know what it was. But after I got into the class and understood what was happening, I was still not sure about it. But after like a few weeks, we had community circles, and I was the facilitator, and we had parents, administrators, cops, everybody from the community and other students also. So I got to see what kind of what restorative justice means, and it was great.
I didn't even think she had taught.
Yeah. Yeah, Father G. Boyle of Homeboy Industries out of, yeah, you want to explain who he is? Yeah.
All right, so Gregory Boyles, he's a founder of Homeboys Industry. It's an industry where they'll find gang members and people of that nature, and what they do is they help them get a better life, because that's really not the life that anybody chooses to live. And he was having I guess you could call it a conference or a talk, and that's where I had met Miss Wadhwa there. Well, the second time, yeah. And that's when I first heard about restorative justice, when she introduced herself to me and she told me what it really was about. At that time, I didn't really think much of it, but I ended up coming here to Academy of Choice, where she came up to me and she started talking to me a little bit more about it. And at first I really saw it as a class just to get more credit. You know, I was just trying to graduate and have a good-looking transcript. Then once I was in the class, I started seeing what we were doing, and I really started to get involved. And after a while, it hit me. I was like, wow, this is amazing. This is something that I actually want to be a part of. It's something I really want to keep doing, even after school. So try to help and get around.
Great, thank you. So can I move us to a different question?
Yeah.
And actually, there's quite a few questions coming in from participants, which makes me excited because they want to hear from you as well. One of the questions that they're asking is a little bit more about the Academy of Choice. So this particular person is asking, do you choose to apply or attend because the academic standards are higher, or because you don't feel like you have a voice or belong at the other school that you would have normally been slated to attend? Like, why did you choose to come to Academy of Choice?
Many different reasons. Go ahead.
All right. The reason I decided to come to Academy of Choice was because at my home school, there was a lot of people who knew me from when I was younger, and I grew up around them. And so there, everybody viewed me as just another, one of those kids, a bad student. And they didn't really give me a chance to do anything. I was always being labeled as so-and-so and this and that, just because they would try, But when I heard about Academy of Choice, I was like, smaller schools, smaller classes, it'd be easier to just get things done and go on with it, get school over with during the day. And then I found out that we moved at an accelerated pace, and that's when it really caught my attention. I was all like, well, if I can graduate faster, I'm gonna go ahead and go for it,
Okay.
I decided to come here, apply, go through the interview and everything, and it's actually a really good school.
Great. Good. Someone else.
I wanted to get most of my classes out the way, perhaps graduate earlier. I mean, it was a change because I came from a big school with a lot of different people, and then I came here and it was so different because there's so smaller class sizes, but you get more one-on-one time with the teacher, and they really work with you. And if anyone wanted to graduate early or get more classes out the way, they have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'll go. The main reason why I came to Academy of Choice was because the school that I'm zoned to, there's over 1,000 kids there. So your voice would not be heard as much as this school, because this school there's only literally around 200 kids in total. And that's including middle school all the way to high school. And those are all the numbers combined. It's like literally around 200 kids at like top. So if anything that you do, people are actually gonna recognize, they're gonna call you out on it, be like, hey, they're gonna know what's going on with you. People are actually gonna pay more attention to you, because attention that every individual needs. And at the same time, your voice can be heard much easier because there's not 2,000 other kids who want their voice to be heard. It's so much of a smaller crowd, so it's much better, like for my side.
I would say we have like a range of people's academic histories. There's people who dropped out of school who are trying to get back in. There's people who've always excelled really well, but socially find it very uncomfortable at their home campus. There may be especially if they're kind of a nonconformist and don't fit in, they might opt to come here. And it's not like super competitive. There's no test to get in. It's just, will you come up, do your work, and understand what the teacher asks, will you do it? Basically, the commitments to make.
Good. Rania, do you want to speak?
Sure.
Sky needs to go. She's just
Bye, you
waiting.
guys. It was nice talking to you.
Oh, it was good talking with you too. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
I decided to come to the Academy of Choice because of the smaller classes, and I also wanted to graduate early. And when I came here, there was actually more opportunities, a lot of things, and restorative justice was definitely one of them.
Well, I was waiting for someone to say the reason you came to Academy of Choice is because Anita Wadhwa is there. Nobody gave that answer.
You, I haven't built. Yeah, they were already. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a joke.
But we are attracting other kids.
Good. Let's see what else. I've got another couple of questions. Okay, so in terms of how did it get started at Academy of Choice, Anita, I know that you are responsible for starting the restorative justice, or was it going on before you got there? Did you phase it in? And do you have a class that's a restorative justice class? Like, how does it work on a daily basis?
Sure. So like I said, I was hired as the in-school suspension teacher, not because that's my dream job after getting my PhD in education, but because, they don't have a coordinator, a restorative justice coordinator, right? We don't have that position. So my principal's very innovative. She thinks outside of the box, and she said, while you're here, we don't have kids in ISS every day. So when you're not doing ISS, I'd like you to build up a program, a kind of intervention program. And she had read about restorative justice. That's why she hired me. She was really excited about, an alternative to the current way that we do things. So the counselor said, hey, would you like a class next year? And so I actually taught a leadership class last year. This is the third semester that I've taught it. Wow, really? Yes, it is. And it was a social experiment. It was a pedagogical experiment. And we just went in and we said, okay. She said, you do whatever you want. I'm like, great. I took the stuff that I learned from Boston. I took the stuff that I learned from my Harvard studies. I took it to the kids. We sat in circle every day. We read Dreams from the Monster Factory. We read Race to Incarcerate, the graphic novel. We did one circle and we just started publicizing. And basically, the students spread the word about, oh, we did this circle. And they knew they had to be confidential, but they would tell kids, hey, do you want to do a circle? And if I approached someone, they might just say, oh gosh, but then, you know, someone like Chris goes up, especially to another young man, is like, yeah, you need to do a circle. Like, you need to address this, you know? And so slowly and slowly, the request came in for circles. And what I do is, our school knows that this is something we're committed to. And so as long as Chris is doing well in class and I will pull him from class and say, we need to facilitate a circle between X and Y. X and Y will get pulled out of class. We'll go into a room. We usually use my classroom, and we do a circle. And I have a little cheat sheet script for them that I've taken from Jeannie Holcomb's Discipline, A Doorway to Discipline. I don't know, it's an amazing book. But I have a script that they use, and they do a circle role play from that book. But then they kind of sit quietly alongside me and watch, and then they can jump in at any point. But like I said, they all have to do one healing circle during the semester. Now we have all these opportunities and requests, so I'm able to take them to trainings. And so they're getting a full apprenticeship to where I feel like by the end of the semester, if there's a conflict that comes up, I could take any of those kids and I could say, can you go to a circle with them? You know, but we're very intentional about who we match up. You know, Yancy, you're friends with this girl, so I can't have you be a facilitator, right? And I guess the question was about how we phased it in. I mean, this is pretty much, I teach the class that is like an incubator for restorative justice. In the following year, which is this year, we decided to offer leadership part 2 so that I could take that same group of kids and keep building on their skills. And then in leadership 1, we just wanted more students involved. And we've expanded it from juniors and seniors to including freshmen.
Okay.
We're very purposeful about who's let into the class because they have to have a level of maturity and accountability that they'll be able to handle it. So we don't need people who are perfect and have perfect grades, but at the same time, if they can't handle the rigors of doing the work, if they're not there emotionally, we might say, well, maybe you can try next year.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. So back to the students, what's been one of the most challenging things for you as you've been doing restorative justice stuff?
I think for me, one of the most challenging things was actually circles and actually asking the right questions so that things are like being healed as we are proceeding, you know, with the circle. I think that's one of the most challenging ones because every person that you have a circle with is someone completely different, and you don't get the same type of personality each time. Some people are more that they're very open, and some others are very conservative, and you have to like kind of keep trying to convince them to talk about a certain thing and how they feel, things like that. I think that's the most challenging part for me, just trying to figure out how to ask the question in the right way and how to ask it, and you know, kind of like that.
Mine was challenging. A few weeks ago, we had at the elementary disciplinary school, we had 2 kids that didn't like each other, and I didn't have a script or anything about that, so we were just going there to have just a talking circle and see how they were doing, and keep up with them. And I go in and they have a conflict in the classroom, so I try to have a healing circle, and it turned out very well. They became friends at the end. So, but the circle is definitely the most challenging.
Thank you, Chris.
The most difficult thing would probably be being a part of community circles and facilitating that, just because there's like a wider range of perspectives. You know, they all view it differently, and they all, you know, some agree with it, others disagree. You know, one group will say it works, others will say it won't. And also, I'm just not really that good with talking to administrators and things like that. So it gets, you know, kind of like this. It gets like this where I can't really talk. But, you know, after a while, I sort of build into it and I get more comfortable. And after that happens, you know, it's just another, just another circle.
I have to say, I wish I had half of the eloquence that these kids have at their age. I had confidence at their age. And a lot of what I do now working in schools is like healing my own bad schooling experiences with high school. And they often think that they're not like eloquent or, you know, and then I hear them and I'm just enchanted by everything that they're saying. The fact that they're just sitting or standing in front of a crowd and talking, I just want to give them a kudos because he's saying that, but I feel quite differently from the adult point of view.
Here. I agree. I'm going to keep moving us along because I've got 9 questions listed right now from participants. So I want to read another one. Someone's asking about the community outside of the school. So you had mentioned earlier that you will sometimes meet with students from the elementary school or from the discipline school, but also outside of the school in the community. But if there are people in the community that wanted to participate in what y'all are doing, would there be a role for that, and what role would that be?
You want me to take that? Yeah, they're looking to me because it's not something we're quite doing yet, I think.
Okay.
But you can chime in about what you think we could do. So we have our 2nd annual conference on Saturday, and what we're trying to do is spread the work organically for free, you know, not trying to do it through an institutionalized, necessarily top-down way, although we think changing discipline policies and things of that nature are important. But like our first community outreach event is when we did the circles with police officers and community members to discuss Mike Brown and all of the Ferguson and everything that's been going on, you know, to start to have that dialogue. So it's been a slow growth to go from let's start with my classroom, let's work in our school, let's work on other schools, now let's try to do community. And I think it's really important to make sure you are engaging the community because your father came, right?
Yeah.
Someone else, a student of mine, is a native Spanish speaker. He led a Spanish-speaking circle, so there were community members there. His mother came. Several parents came and were kind of amazed at what they heard from police officers. They were able to start to build different ideas about others in the community. And they said, I really want to do more of this. I just don't know how to do it. So unfortunately, my role as an in-school suspension teacher and working on this organization, you know, we don't have the capacity to address all the things that people want to happen at this point. But as a home base for piloting this work, I think we're doing a pretty good job. And the Harris County Probation Department has actually invited us to train all of their probation officers in the fall. So that's another really important part of the school to prison pipeline, because if they can use restorative practice rather than reporting the first infraction against their probation, then that's another way to, you know, keep these kids out of that. So, jumping at anything more, if you think about community.
What the question was, like, how can they take
How can you get the
initiative?
community involved? You know, like, yeah.
There was, we had my first community circle. We had police officers, and they also decided to do that while they're at work, because they believed that there was a lot of miscommunication, and they started doing it there.
I didn't even know that.
What was that like working with the police officers and teaching them about restorative justice?
Can I take this question? Sure. Okay. I'm taking this one. It was actually very interesting because you don't get to just be assume what a police officer does or anything. You're not assuming their point of view. You actually have them there, and they're telling you how it's actually affecting them, the way that media portrays everything. So just seeing how it affects them, you can also see how they're understanding what we do and why we want to do it in the first place, because it also has to do in a way with them. Because whenever anything happens at school, they are the ones that they call to get involved. If there's let's say a fight, the police officer usually is the one that comes to our school and gives a ticket.
Okay.
So it also has to involve them to a degree. So it was actually I really liked it. It was very interesting just being able to hear their point of view.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak to that?
You asked what was it like?
Yeah, how was it like talking to police officers?
You asked what was it like?
Yes.
Get in the camera.
Oh yeah. When I got into that community circle, I was really just put there as a facilitator. I wasn't really knowing what to expect, but already I was uncomfortable just because, it was people who enforce the law, and I just, I already had a perspective on them that wasn't really that good. It was, really biased. So I didn't really feel comfortable there. Couldn't really talk much, but after we started talking for a while, you start realizing that not everything that you think is what it really is, and not every single one of them is the same. They feel, just like we feel. They're just doing their job, So we had this little moment of realization, or at least I did, and after that, it felt just, yeah, it's relieving, I guess, if you want to say. I mean, I don't really have a word for it, I'm not good at describing it.
Don't say that. It's good. It's really good. No, that makes sense to me. Do you feel like they understood you better at the end of the time together as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Would you recommend that other communities do that, get students and police officers together?
I think that's something that really should happen, because there's a lot of misconceptions on what police officers do and how they do their job, and especially now with everything that's been showing up on the news, how cops are just shooting people for no reason, things like that. Well, that's actually what our community circle was about at first. So I think it would really help if we had more circles like that going on.
Well, good. Here in Harrisonburg, we had a meeting yesterday with a bunch of people from the city, and I'm kind of sad to say there weren't students involved, but I will definitely, the next time we do something like that, work hard to make sure we include a group of students to be a part of that meeting. So, yeah, that's good. Making me think. Can I reach over here and ask another question? Let's see. So one of the questions is, are there other schools that you know of that are doing restorative justice? And have you been able to collaborate with them if there are?
It's happening now. So over time, as people have heard the kids on the radio, there was an NPR story, and word of mouth and things. And then also we had our administrator training. For example, one middle school in the district reached out to us, and we're going to go do 3 healing circles on Friday. And an alternative campus with a supportive principal. She'll let us get on a bus with 3 kids, because I can't drive them legally, and go and do circles, which is phenomenal. I mean, this is a really experiential education for them, which is why I think it's so engaging, And it turns out they are going to offer a leadership class next year, and they want to start a restorative justice program there. But that's one of several schools that I've been in contact with, both in our school district and other school districts. So as far as I know, we're the first in Houston. I'm sure restorative practices take place, but kind of like a bona fide, this is what we do, circles. And we're not perfect by any means. We still do zero tolerance things, but that's part of the transition. I think it's starting to really pick up, and that's what I'm really excited by. And yeah, we're definitely collaborating, and we go to other people's schools and we'll train their teachers and students, and their students will come here after school and meet our kids. So we do a lot of that.
Good. When you've gone to other schools, students, what's been a highlight? What's been something that's been really exciting to see when you've gone and spoken to other schools?
Well, they recently went to a charter school that's interested. Do you want to talk about? Yeah, it's KIP, right? KIP in Houston, Knowledge is Power program. KIP, it's pretty known, I think, nationwide. I'm not sure, but it started in Houston. So do you want to? What was it like for you?
I'll start it. For me, once I got there, I saw the crowd, kind of how their attitude was, and I was a little bit concerned at first, but whenever we started talking to them, they were actually very, very interested, and that's what something they really liked. They're like, they really want to do this. They were really like up for it, and I was like, that's great. I mean, of course. I mean, this is what we're doing. The way we went. So that's something that I really liked. Whenever when we usually go to other schools, especially like KIP Courage, I think it's Courage, or KIP High School. They're always very excited, and whenever we finish talking about, we finish training, afterwards we talk to them, and just one-on-one. We don't not like all together, just one-on-one, like me with another student, and ask them what they actually thought about it, like just them being honest, just them being themselves. And there's something that they're really interested, that they like what we're doing, and that it's actually a very smart idea to like prevent all these disciplinary issues from going on. So that's something.
I hear them making automatic connections. They had expelled a student that seemed pretty beloved only a few days prior to us coming, and I heard several of them say, "Man, if we would have been doing this kind of thing early on, who knows what it might have happened." So I feel like that they glom onto it very quickly, and the youth response is always so much more immediate, I think, than the adults.
Anybody else? Highlight of going and speaking at other schools?
Like
With other schools, not really.
no, we haven't.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I have another question. One of the participants has asked, for the students, what's it been like leading circles in your own school? It's small, everybody. Has it created some difficulties with peers, or has it mostly been positive for you?
Can you repeat that?
Mm-hmm. So you go to a small school where everybody. When you facilitate circles and you're kind of taking some leadership roles, how has that been with your peers in the school? Are you seen as leaders? Does it create conflict? Whatever, just what's that been like?
Okay, you've done the most.
Yeah.
You've done more community, and you've done some, so you can think about, is it weird, the ones that you've done, like how are you viewed by other students, or confidentiality, or with when people see you as a leader? I don't know how I can see you.
Go ahead and start. Go ahead.
Okay, so you kind of get an idea from what I say. The way that, basically, this whole school I basically know. I know everyone, and whenever I do a circle, I make sure that I'm equal with both sides. I make sure that I'm not too friends with this one and not with the other. It has to be neutral. So whenever I do have a circle, the way it goes is that they don't see me as a leader. They don't see me as like, okay, I'm the main person in this, I'm be controlling it. No, they don't see me that way. They see me as Yancy. They see me as a friend. So whenever they see you as one of them, it's actually better because they're more open and they're not like giving you these trying to be professional answers or anything. They're talking like straight from them, not anything else or not anything that will make them look good. Because I know kind of a little bit of their story. I know kind of like who they are. So they see me as their friend. They don't see me as anyone who's trying to be like taking over the power of the circle or anything like that.
Great. Great.
I would agree with her the same way. But also in our own leadership class, just as Dr. Wadhwa said, we have circles every morning as check-ins, and it was really great because you get to know people and their story, and it definitely changes your opinion about them.
Doing circles in school, you would think, well, at least I thought that there would be conflict because, I'm trying to resolve an issue and it's with a student who did something bad, You'd think that they're going to be mad at you because you're trying to take initiative and decide what's going to happen. But from the circles I've been in and from what's gone on, it's really just, once they see that what you're doing is actually trying to help them and prevent them from getting into more trouble, and they start realizing that they don't really, they start to like, they start to just, they respect that. They respect that you're trying to help them, and so they're gonna just do their part and just do what they gotta do and just make it.
It's good. Thank you. Yeah. Is there anything else about like your own work in the Academy of Choice in your own school that you want to talk about?
Oh, the work relating to restorative justice?
Yeah.
Okay, good. We did a lot of work in the AOC. Other work, I would say that the ability that we have is that we're very flexible in when we do a circle. Like there's always, whenever Ms. Wadhwa trains us in our leadership class, there's like kids in the class. So it's very flexible in when the circle is needed. There usually is a student that's able to miss a class in order to facilitate the circle. So I like the flexibility of it and also the outcome of it, because in our school there's been like a couple conflicts here and there, like a normal high school. Like there's always going to be some type of conflict.
Okay.
So what I really like about this is that we're always catching things before they happen. And because usually, let's say, for instance, there's going to be a fight. You're going to hear about it beforehand. You're like, oh, so-and-so is going to fight. You hear about it, either you see the tension or you hear the drama of it. So we're like, oh, we need a circle for these two people. Let me go ask them. Okay. We do a circle and they're kind of first like, no. And then afterwards, after they're actually placed in the circle and they actually start talking, they're like, oh, I thought you said this. No? Then so-and-so told me that. It's like, oh, I never even spoke to that person. I'm like, oh, okay. And everyone gets to understand each other. So that's what I really like about this, how the outcome of it.
Yeah.
What we do.
And it sounds like that's another advantage to having students working with leadership roles in the school. Like how many times would a student walk up to an adult and say, hey, these people are about to fight and let's do something before it happens, and yet they'll do that to a fellow student. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's why whenever we do the circles, we always try to have it more students dominant, kind of like students taking over it, for the main reason because whenever whenever it's a teacher or another adult in general, just an adult in general, coming to a student, usually it's because the way the student sees it, they're trying to censure them or they're in trouble in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have that same type of trust because you usually get along with your friends, and you usually put more trust in friends that that you have in class every day, that you know from like a couple years, or that you see all the time. Teachers, there's not that much of a strong communication or relationship as there is with student and student. That's why we try to make it more student dominant other than student to teacher dominant. So that's like the main thing that we prefer, just having students approaching the other students and the student having the control of like a circle instead of a teacher leading it. It's better whenever it's a student because we understand the situation, and we as student we acknowledge what's going on, and we like sometimes even we know more information than the teacher does about what's going on. So yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak to that?
No, I just agree.
Just agree. Okay. Well, one of the questions that we have here, and I think that you knew about, so we're trying to promote more restorative justice in schools. What advice would you give to teachers, administrators, adults about starting restorative justice programs?
Do you want to start?
Yeah.
Okay. Some advice that I would tell anyone who is willing to try it is that first get to know the process. Don't just like learn about it one day and then the next day like, hey, we're gonna do a circle. You need to like let people know of what it is so they'll be able to understand what you're doing and why you're doing it and how it functions exactly or specifically. Because if you just approach someone like, hey, we're gonna do this, okay? And they're gonna be very confused and why? So, and especially because usually whenever you're doing restorative justice and you're doing a healing circle, which is, do they know what healing circles are?
It's a good question.
Do you know what the difference between each circle?
I think you could explain it would be very helpful.
Yes, because we keep saying healing or community. That's why I wanted to have an idea of what it is.
No, that'd be great. Explain it.
A healing circle is whenever there's a problem and there's a need of resolving it. And it's kind of whenever we have some type of conflict, like I mentioned before about the fight. That's you need a healing because the two persons' relationship or connection or the link that they had was broken and that needs to be restored. That's how we get into the restorative part. So that needs to be restored. So in that case, we would have a healing circle. We also have support circles, which is
explain what a circle is. I'm sure probably everyone knows, but if someone doesn't,
a circle. A circle. We just sit in we all sit in the classroom or wherever we're having a circle. We sit in we put our chairs in the in a circle. And literally we're in a circle and there's nothing in the middle. It's not a table because we don't want any interruption in the connections that we're having from each person to each other. So that's what the circle is. We just sit in the shape of a circle. Yes, and also part of doing this, of having a circle, is that there's some rules to it. That the main rule is confidentiality. Whatever happens in the circle has to stay in the circle because people are sharing their point of view or they're sharing personal stories, and we don't want the whole world to know about their personal business. So that has to be kept within the people who are in the circle. Another one is watching your airtime, make sure you don't talk for 20 minutes and then have 5 minutes left for the rest of the people. Something like that, and respecting the circle by not walking away, not especially, what is it, body language. On that one, that make sure that whenever someone's talking, let's say it's a person that you got in a fight with, make sure you're not rolling your eyes or you're just sitting you're all relaxed, is it okay? And try not to be rolling your eyes and then doing how some people, whenever someone talks, they're ugh, oh my gosh. Or they try to speak, make sure that you're respecting the purpose of having a circle. Those are a few of the rules, and being respectful, of course, being one of them. Yeah, already. That was the main one. So
She
those are
asked
some
what,
rules.
for people who want to introduce restorative justice, what do they, I'm repeating the question for him. What do they need to keep in mind? Is that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, what do you want them to know? Like if they want to do
Start
art
their own program.
They want to start their own program.
Well, after you get to know the process and everything, always when you do healing circles, you want to keep up with the person and always make an agreement at the end
It's a good one.
and follow up with that person to make sure they did what they said in the agreement.
Good point.
Yeah, I didn't remember about that. Yes.
So when you're introducing it to someone who's new to it, really, really just wait.
Key points for anyone.
Can you repeat the question?
Advice.
Kind of advice for people who want to do this. What's
Oh,
something
for
that you want
people
them to
who
know?
want to do this.
Yeah, what's something you want to let them know? Some advice.
Really, they've already covered all the basics, so that's honestly all you really need to know. Then you just go ahead and take initiative and, get the community going, or at least your school or wherever you're trying to get this to work at.
Good. Well, I'm going to look over here at my list. Were you fixing to say something?
No, I was just saying I wish I had more to say.
You wish what?
I shouldn't do that.
I wish I had more to say.
Let me look through this real quick, see if there are other questions that need to be answered.
I would just add, like, people need to try one circle because I studied it, took the trainings. You know what it's like coming from the academic world. It's nothing like when you go and have to do it yourself. And it's like, whoa, can I do this? And then you make the mistakes, but like she said, I didn't do one training and just jump in, right? I had been mentored. I had observed so many circles. I had done trainings. I'd say the proof is in the pudding. You try one circle and you go from there. I think people have such a fear of trying it. We don't want to screw it up. I have to say, I've seen maybe little to no circles actually make things worse. I've seen circles where it's just kind of like, that didn't really do much. But those are also in the minority. In fact, I've seen some really phenomenal ones. I've seen some that just squashed it. They didn't necessarily get along after. I've seen forgiveness. I've seen it all across the spectrum. So I think you just have to try it. Just be open to it not feeling as good as you think it's supposed to feel initially.
Good. Back to advice for people who are wanting to start programs. Let's say that there's a school that has a restorative justice program, but they've got adults who are leading all of the circles. What would you say to convince them to get students involved?
Let the students take control. That's my main thing. Gives the students an opportunity because it's easier for a student to talk to another student than a teacher to approach the student. Because students, we understand each other. Because we're on the same age group and we know each other, so students understand how each of us are, and we know usually with the gossip things, we know what's going on rather than a teacher knowing. Because teachers, they're actually more, let's say, whenever it comes to school and adults, they're more like authoritative. Kind of like they have more power than the students, and that's something that in general students just naturally feel a little bit like our power of being a student is taken away because of a teacher. So whenever you have a student, make sure that you have everything that let students take over. That's like the main thing. Make sure that students take over because it makes the biggest difference.
Yeah, kids should really be a part of it because like she was saying, word goes around, but teachers, they'll hear some things, but they'll never really hear as much as the students know. The student doesn't even have to be a part of, socially active, they're still going to know what's going on just because it's what everybody's talking about. So with students, they'll be able to, like, they'll hear everything first. They'll be able to take initiative faster than you would be able to respond as an adult because you wouldn't know as much and you wouldn't know all of it.
I have to say the youth component is the most important part of the program, if that hasn't already come across. And that's why when we do trainings, we split the room up into groups of 6. There's a role play scenario from the book that I mentioned. They facilitate the training and I just walk around. It's very important for me because this is a leadership class. So not only are they helping other people with conflicts, they're helping themselves with their own leadership, their own conflicts, their own confidence. And it's not going to be perfect, right? It's really hard. It can be cringeworthy for adults to watch students like maybe not quite put it right or whatever. And then when you let go of that control, you start to see the magic happen. And these are the salespeople. And you see the adults leaning in like, so tell me, but what if this happens at my school? And then they will come up with the answers. And we always end or begin with a story of self. And so for them to hear this narrative that takes weeks for these kids to write, and this comes from Marshall Gans, who's at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard, and who, organized in the, with Cesar Chavez. It's a narrative that is used to promote something or to sell, to inspire action. It's not just, here's my story, and so for them, for me, these young people are driving everything, and they're at every training that I do. And frankly, I wouldn't be able to do the training without them. Like, how do you simulate 10 circles simultaneously at the same time as 2 adults doing a professional development? You can't. So I just want to put that out there.
I also want to add the elementary students that I mentor. They usually have circles with their teachers just to check in, and whenever we have them with the teachers, they're more quiet and they don't really want to share anything, because if they at some point, 2 of them had a conflict, and one said to the other, "I hate you," and the teacher got mad at him for saying that. You're not allowed to say that. But whenever the teacher is out, he can share it without worrying that he will get in trouble for it. So, yeah, good example.
Have y'all ever facilitated conflicts between students and teachers?
Yes, we have. Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, in general, we have facilitated when we've done even classrooms, whenever there's a problem with the classroom, that the classroom is not having the best communication with the teacher, or something happened. Like, we've done even a whole classroom with the teacher and then solved what was going on. Like, one of them was about cell phone policy that we had. The other kids were not even caring about it, and it was really affecting the teacher because she's trying to teach and these kids are just texting. So we had a circle with all of them together because it's affecting the whole class. Mm-hmm. So we've done classrooms, and we've done teachers, student teachers. So we've done a lot of different types of circles with different audience.
Yeah, very different. I've actually had a circle between a student and teacher where the teacher was the victim because the student was harassing the teachers. Oh, wow. And it was one teacher, it was multiple teachers, and well, you're not even supposed to be doing that. I can't really speak about what happened or anything like that, but what I can say is that after the circle, the teachers were forgiving, they were okay. And the student, at first, he was just wow, he didn't think nothing of it, but now he's more comprehensive, yes.
Wow. I have your words.
He speaks.
That's great.
Good, because it's hard for one adult to go and check in with all the commitments that are made. But there was a circle he did between a teacher and a student the student promised to never skip that class anymore. And then the next day he skipped. And Chris went to speak to him to keep him accountable. Chris was really upset. So, I mean, it's been helpful for them to be able to go check in and, you know, keep the other student accountable. Because it's not a teacher coming in saying, you said this. It's a peer saying, what happened, you know?
Right.
So,
It's not a threat. It's
Right.
accountability without the fear of the threat.
right.
One of the questions that popped up here on the participant, you were talking a minute ago about in the circle process, watching your body language and watching your air time and all those kinds of things. What happens in a circle when somebody doesn't honor those kind of expectations, when somebody breaks them and you see somebody rolling their eyes or talking too much or whatever? How do you respond?
Okay, go. You go.
Well, the facilitator really just, points that out and lets them know the first time, give them a warning. They don't know you're not supposed to do that. And if it keeps going on, then, well, they just have to leave the circle because, you're trying and they don't want to listen.
You might want to mention the I agree that we do.
Yeah.
Oh.
We also, when we start the circle, we say all the norms, and we pass the talking piece, and if you, we ask every person to say I agree. So to to reinforce it.
But so if they don't
So
agree,
really,
then how do you handle it?
And
I mean, if they, sorry, that's a different question. If they agree, but do these behaviors, which happens all the time.
okay,
How do you?
if they agree with the norms at the very beginning and then throughout the circle they're like the body language part of it,
Just keep them accountable.
they're just like, we call them out on it. We're like, hey, could you not do that? And like, please respect the norms that you agreed to. We say something like that because kind of like a reminder, because sometimes you just forget, like of the like a certain like of some of the norms. Sometimes you just forget. So we just call them out on it. We remind them so that they're like, oh, I can't do this, so that they know of like what they can or can't do.
Okay. Another question that popped up just then is, this is a high school y'all are at, right?
Yes.
So do you think it could work at a middle school or an elementary school to have students involved in leadership? And what would you have to do differently if you were going to do that with younger kids, middle schoolers, for example?
You have the experience with elementary. How would you train them?
I think it would work with middle school. I'm not sure about elementary.
How come? I feel like I might agree, but
They haven't really developed, that character in them, which shows, leadership, because they're young. It's really just all about playing and things like that, But in middle school, that's where they're already, developing, becoming a young adult and things like that. So at that point, it's really just.
I disagree.
Okay.
You know why? Those elementary kids in the program, so thankfully there's only 3 or 4 at the most. We wouldn't, now there's 5, but there's never been more than that. But the thing is, they're already holding each other accountable. They're like, you don't have the peace, right?
Yeah.
So imagine, so they're already developing those leadership skills. So imagine if you took that kid into another classroom and was like, we're going to describe circle. And like, of course, they don't have the same language. You know what I mean? But I feel like on that scale, they would be doing the same thing.
Okay.
It will not look like what it looks like here.
So it would look differently maybe at an elementary school level or a middle school level, but you think you could still do it?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
I agree with elementary. I really do. I actually believe that if you actually start teaching young kids from an early age, they will learn to not do certain things, that instead of taking action whenever there's a problem, to just go directly to doing a circle and then like resolving it before anything or anybody gets hurt.
Taking positive action.
Yeah, like a positive action towards it instead of a negative one. Yeah, I agree.
One other question, a book that you keep referring to about role-playing exercises. Do you know about this?
Yes. It's actually a script that we follow that is a mock circle. That's
Okay. And could you tell us the name of that?
She's gonna get it right now because I don't know if it's back of my mind.
Okay, good.
Basically, I can explain to you what it is. What it is we do a mock circle whenever we go train others. We take this script, and basically what I mean by script is that it has a general information of a conflict that had happened. And then it has like 6 different characters, including the facilitator, and kind of their role of who they are and their type of personality and what they've gone through and what their point of view of the problem was. And then that's what the script is. But usually when people refer to a script as, what you're going to say. But no, and this one just tells you what each character is or how they are. And we give that to everyone, and they choose a specific character that they want. They're like, oh, I want to be Gerald, or I want to be Francine, or I want to be the teacher, or I want to be the assistant principal, depending on the situation. And what we do with that is that we do a mock circle, like if that situation was actually happening, and if that, like whoever we are, or which position we take, that's who we are. They say like, oh, I'm gonna be the boy who's causing the harm. That's gonna be me. And then we're gonna role play a circle like if it was actually happening. And that's what the script is. Kind of like, so you could have a scene of, you could have like kind of like a first person kind of like situation that kind of like how it's gonna go, how it's gonna be solved. So you can experience it.
Yeah, this book is titled A Doorway to Discipline, Taking Restorative Justice to Schools by Jeanette Holtham. I love the book. It's very practical. It's wonderful.
Excellent. Good. We're sort of winding down on time. There's a couple of other questions that I want to make sure we ask. We've talked a little bit about how you think that restorative justice has impacted your school, like what have been the positive outcomes at your school. But maybe there'd be any other comments you'd want to make about that. What do you think is the overall impact that restorative justice has had on your school?
From coming from my home school and then coming here, I can say that it really does prevent a lot of things from happening. Like I haven't seen any fights since I've been here, but at my home school, I've seen, every week there was at least 2 or 3 fights going on. And I feel like the circle is really why there's nothing happening here, because before they get to a fight, we resolve the conflict and get it all worked out.
And I really agree with him because I've been here before you came, right? Yeah. I mean, I've been in this school for 3 years, and restorative justice came when I was in my second year, I believe. Yeah, in my second year. So in the first year that I was in this school, there were I think 3 or 4 fights during the whole year, and then ever since Ms. Wadhwa, ever since she introduced us, and then we started taking action because we already learned about how we do circles, process, and then we started taking action. Like, okay, there's this problem going on, let's do a circle. So-and-so is having a conflict, let's do a circle. This person's gonna get in a fight, I heard about it. How about we get them together and then talk things out just in case? And then we did a circle, and ever since then, there literally has not been a fight in this school. So that's actually, you can tell the difference from being at least, because we're a small school, so everybody is able to create drama, and the drama gets spread really quickly because we're so small. So everybody knows your business. So that's why I like that there's like no, how would you say it? There's no way that we don't know about what's going on, that we have that ability to take action before anything happens.
Also, I was going to say it helps people with like, okay, at my home school, there were a lot of kids who just didn't want to go to school just because, for whatever reason, so they stopped going. And since it's such a large school, really, there's not a lot of, like, you can't really point out one kid in 10,000. it's not noticeable. So no one really gets onto them for it. But since we're in a small school, we'll hold a circle and try to figure out why they're not coming, if there's a problem or it's just, something personal. And, when you get on them, I guess they just sort of feel more, what's the word I'm looking for?
When you get on them, more
comfortable?
Recognize, they're just not, they know that they're not unknown and that people don't care. They feel like, someone's there and they care and they really do want you to do better and show up. And, we have kids that show up all the time. And if someone stops showing up, usually there's a circle or someone will talk to them and they start coming back. I mean, I did that with a student who she refused to come to school because she thought it was boring. But I talked to her when she would come, and then I talked to her out of school, and she started coming on a daily basis.
I agree with both, and also when when we're doing all the restorative justice circles, also here the students are like more comfortable doing the circles, and also they're more likely to say yes than say I don't want to do it.
Just because everybody's already.
Yeah, everybody has already done it, so it would be really weird. Like, we usually don't get a no. Like, I haven't heard of anyone who said, and actually, I don't think I've heard of anyone who's like disagreed to having a circle.
Yeah.
Like, we've done a circle with a majority of the school. So we've done it with teachers, we've done it with a bunch of students, with classrooms, like I said. So everybody has practically almost been a part of a circle. So we don't usually get a no as an answer because they know what we're doing.
You get some no's, and those are from kids who just refuse to be accountable.
Yeah.
And we have a few of those, and it's extremely frustrating.
Yeah.
No, but I'll just say, so they get deployed in school suspension or getting suspended, but they know circle is hard. They've been in it before, and they're like, I don't want to do it. So.
Good. All right, final question. Are you ready?
Ooh.
Yeah.
No, just seriously, one more question. Like I said, we talked about the impact on your school, but there was another question that was asked, and I'm really curious. What do you think has been the impact on you personally? Like, how has this impacted your life? Yeah.
Like, this is a little bit of a story of self.
Yeah. Sort of.
Yeah. Do I start it? Or?
Yeah,
I could go if you don't want to. If you want, you can go. You can start it. It's okay.
Well, after doing all restorative justice, you feel more confident that you're able to change the world. It just makes you feel more confident.
Something that I really gained from this is that you really get to gain a lot of leadership skills. You get to be people actually recognize you on being a leader, not just another student, but you're like, hey, this person has great potential. They're actually very good in this. Surprisingly, you're like, I never expected that. So it brings out the best of you. That's what I really like about this. And also it gives you, I don't know, I really like that. It gives you the opportunity to be a leader in something that matters the most to you, which is here, in our school is our friends. We make friends, we know the whole school base. We literally know the whole school. So being able to change what's going on within each person in the school, being able to fix things, that's the most important thing that, for me personally, that's what I love about this, is that I'm not gonna have my friends who are just fighting over little things that doesn't really matter. I can actually do something, and I know the way to do it now. And now that I have the training, and it makes you feel more confident of what you're doing and about yourself as well.
Right.
No, before I became a part of this whole program, I was sort of the person who's all like, I have my problems, you have your problems, just don't mix it up. You can solve yours if you want to. I'm gonna go ahead and handle mine the way I want to. Things like that. And I really it was all about me. I didn't really care about anyone else as long as I just handle my things and make sure that I'm on myself. But after being a part of this, I became more understanding, more connected. Can I say like a hard ass?
Yeah.
All right. I guess you could say I was a hard ass or whatever. But
What do you mean hard ass? How do you become one?
hard ass.
Yes. Explain yourself there.
I just didn't care about anyone else. It was really just.
Oh, you were before.
Yeah.
Okay. And
No.
then you were more lenient.
But now I'm more lenient. I'm more understanding. I won't just judge you anymore, and I'll actually like want to get to know you, want to talk to you, and I actually want to help people out now instead of just being like,
Minding your own business.
oh, okay, like whatever. That's cool.
It also teaches you a lot about yourself, and whenever you're writing the story of self, we also include the story of us, which is how restorative justice impacted you, and you really can see the change, how it helped.
Well, maybe you'll write your own book about that. That would be awesome. Hey, we are out of time, and there are still more questions to answer, and so those of you that have been participating and asking questions, we'll try to answer those by text, but I am going to turn things over to Jordan now for some closing comments. Thank you all so much for being with us, and I'll come back at the end and say a final word, but Sky, Rania, Quincy, Chris, I know Sky's gone, but y'all thank you so much. Anita, thank you so much, and y'all have a great afternoon.
Thanks. Thank you so
too.
much.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Michelson. I'm a current graduate student here at the Center for Justice and Peace Building. First of all, I want to echo Kathy's thanks to our guests. It was just a really inspiring conversation. I'm really inspired by each and every one of you, and I think your shirt captures it very well. Let's start a movement, and y'all are doing that, so keep up the great work. I got a couple of quick housekeeping items and announcements for what's coming up in the future of the Zehr Institute and here at the Center for Justice and Peace Building. As Kathy mentioned, we are launching a 5-part series on the web focused specifically on RJ and education. Our next webinar is going to be May 15th, and it's going to be on student-led restorative justice in Fairfax County with Dr. Sean Stickler and Vicki Shope. And this next webinar will also feature students, but with more of a focus on student accountability related to academic integrity issues. So stay tuned for that webinar as we get closer to the date. Also, if you want to view previous webinars, and Anita, question for you, we typically post these online and are planning to do that with this webinar. Is that okay?
Yes, we've given the green light, yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be in communication about that, but that's our typical plan. So please do check in to view those recordings. A little bit more about Eastern Mennonite University. We offer undergraduate programs including peace building and development, and then we also have several graduate programs. As I mentioned, the Center for Justice and Peace Building, our Masters in Education, and a few other programs. We have a seminary and a couple other programs that you can check online. I would encourage you to check our website, emu.edu. Coming up, we have more courses to offer related to restorative justice. So if this is your field and you're passionate about it, or if you're just getting into it, or know someone who would be interested in this topic and these conversations and application in a whole variety of settings, I'd highly encourage you to check out the Summer Peace Building Institute. We are 2 weeks away from the beginning of SPI. I want to draw attention to 3 courses specifically related to RJ. The first being Restorative Justice, the Promise, the Challenge, a great introduction to RJ concepts and philosophy and theory and application. Developing restorative organizations, carrying RJ principles and values and ethics into the workplace, and how do we create restorative organizations. And finally, Justice in Transition, restorative and indigenous applications in post-war context, which is a little bit more on the macro scale, but also including community level as well. These courses are still open and available. There are other courses online as well, so I would encourage you to check out the website listed here on this screen. If you want to look at course descriptions or the course syllabi, those are all listed online. Really great opportunities coming up. Also coming up is the STAR trainings. This is the Strategies for Trauma Awareness and Resilience. There's a lot of overlap between just trauma approaches and what we encounter in the RJ field and all kinds of different applications or settings. So if you have interest in becoming trauma informed as an individual or as an organization or as a school, I would highly encourage checking into these training opportunities. The dates are listed here on the screen. They're also listed online, and I would encourage you to check those out. As I mentioned previously, Center for Justice and Peace Building offers a Master's in Conflict Transformation. It's a practice-based master's program, real strong focus on conflict transformation, being how do we transform these systems and structures of oppression and systems of injustice. It's a really, really fabulous program, a lot of strong emphasis on restorative justice and on trauma healing and strategic peace building and community development. You can find more information on our website. It's very, very exciting stuff. We also offer a graduate certificate specifically in restorative justice. So if you are working and want to supplement your work experience with some more education or some specialized training, this is a really great opportunity to receive some more information, take some courses, really hone in on this practice and sharpen some skills. I know that we offer at least one course right now online, and we're hoping to do more of that, so stay tuned for more opportunities to be connected, even if you are not located in the Harrisonburg area. We're also really excited by the Restorative Justice in Education program that Kathy is helping and is a really big part of that program here in Harrisonburg. We're offering different focus options for educators in the K-12 system, administrators, community leaders, social workers, school counselors. Students within the MA program can take a specific concentration in RJ in education, and we are also offering an RJE graduate certificate similar to the RJ certificate, and this program would be a 15-hour graduate certificate specifically in RJ in education. So please stay tuned for more information, and we will look forward to seeing everyone come back in May. And with that, I will hand it back over to Kathy.
Well, I'll just close out by saying that this was the first of a 5-series webinar series, and all of the 5 webinars will be specifically about restorative justice in education, with the explicit purpose of addressing issues of discipline problems in schools and the way that those are handled, looking at the cradle to prison pipeline and how we can address that more effectively. And so today has been specifically looking for students' perspectives, and I have really appreciated your perspectives and appreciated the participants' questions, and I'm sure that we will continue to look to Houston for some examples of what to do to pull students into leadership positions. So thank you for that model, and thanks for the advice that you've given us today and for the insight. And I just want to assure you that even as I'm talking, I'm hearing you deeply and realizing that I myself need to work harder at including students into what we're doing here at EMU. So thank you for that kind of nudge in that direction, and I appreciate it very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be with y'all today. Thank you so much, and have a great day, and we'll close this out now.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you.